While the Nokia 5.3 and the Huawei Y8s share the same price segment and are in direct competition, their approach to how a budget smartphone should be is absolutely different. I mentioned in my 5.3 review that when you're creating a device within this price segment, it's always all about choosing the right sort of compromises for the price. So the question is, which one of these phones makes the right sort of compromises? Let's find out. Let's say you have a limited budget and you're shopping for specifications. What do? HMD's approach to the Nokia 5.3 is to give it a very balanced spec sheet, with a main focus on giving it decent performance by equipping it with the Snapdragon 665 CPU and the Adreno 610 GPU. When it comes to cameras, they chased the trend of giving it as many cameras as possible. So it has 4 cameras, a main 13 megapixel unit and a 5 megapixel ultra-wide unit, as well as a macro lens and a depth sensor. They wanted the phone to be future-proof, so they added some specifications that don't really stick out on a spec sheet, but are very good. Things such as adding USB-C, as well as giving it NFC for mobile payments. For its display, they gave it a good 720p panel. You can tell a lot of thought went into the overall smartphone experience, as opposed to just trying to impress people on a spec sheet. Huawei, on the other hand, went into a completely different approach. For a start, the phone is equipped with a higher resolution 1080p display. For its cameras, instead of going for 4 and chasing the trend like HMD, Huawei decided to go for a higher quality 48 megapixel main sensor, as well as a depth sensor. This sort of sensor is usually found on more expensive devices. The phone doesn't have an ultra-wide lens or a macro lens. On the front of the device, the phone is equipped with 2 cameras, an 8 megapixel shooter, as well as a depth sensor. For the CPU, they went with their in-house Kirin 710 chipset, which comes with a Mali G51 mediocre GPU. For regular consumers, this won't mean much, as you won't be able to know how well this CPU compares to Snapdragon's CPU. In a way, this is quite clever, as it shields Huawei from being directly compared to its main competitors. So overall, and from a glance, the spec sheet looks quite impressive. But the devil is always in the details. Due to using this chipset, the phone doesn't have the AC Wi-Fi standards, and it also lacks NFC. And to top it all off, it does come with micro USB. So let's see if these things come back to hurt it later on. Both phones are equipped with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of onboard storage, and they both support dual SIMs as well as SD cards. When it comes to design, both phones trick you into thinking they're more expensive than what they actually are. They are both built incredibly well, with dense plastic material surrounding the display, which can be mistaken for metal, and they both have plastic finishes on their back. Nokia went with a matte finish coating on the back, which is scratch resistant, and something that I personally prefer, while Huawei went for a glossy finish that closely mimics glass. The Huawei finish looks really nice, but it does attract a lot of fingerprints, and it's almost impossible to keep clean. If you're like me, you'll be wiping the back of your Huawei device every time you decide to use it. The Nokia has a slightly larger display at 6.55 inches, compared to the 6.5-inch display found on the Huawei. And what this means is that the Nokia is slightly taller. In theory, this means that the Huawei should be easier to use with one hand. Interestingly enough, both phones come with a notification light. With the Huawei, it's hidden under the earpiece, while the Nokia cleverly hides it within the power button on the side. I would say both have excellent hardware and design, so it's really a matter of taste. I prefer the Nokia's symmetrical back design, but I also like where the Huawei has the headphone jack on the bottom, which makes it better when you're listening to music with your phone in your pocket. Overall, I'm leaning slightly towards the Nokia here though. The matte finish on the back is a much more practical approach for me, in my opinion, and the fact that it has a smaller notch makes it a bit better to look at from the front, especially considering I don't take a lot of selfies. The Nokia also offers 3 colors as opposed to Huawei's 2, so more choice is better for you. Android 10 stock launcher versus Huawei's MUI on top of Android 9. Both approaches to software couldn't be any more different. Nokia went with a simplistic approach, offering a clean slate of the latest version of Android, which almost completely relies on Google services. Their contribution is very light-handed, mainly the double tap to wake up feature, as well as the custom camera app. The Huawei, on the other hand, looks completely different, with icons that look like the love child of LG and the iPhone, and an interface that isn't really shy about its original inspiration. But it offers a lot more customizations built into the settings. You can change fonts, themes, color profiles of the display, and so on. It also has Huawei designed custom applications for all the base functions of the device. From a design point of view, I like Nokia's approach, but from a usability and customization point of view, the Huawei offers a lot more. So choose what you prefer. Having said that, since this Huawei comes with the Google Play Store installed as well as the Google services, I was hoping that you'd get the latest version of Android on it. But unfortunately you don't. So Huawei needed to build their own gesture-based navigation, which doesn't hold up to Android's stock implementation of gestures. The Nokia is also guaranteed 2 new iterations of Android, and due to the complicated situation between Huawei and Google, we don't know what the update situation will be like for the Y8s. So how do both phones perform? Really well actually. Despite the completely different silicon, both phones are snappy and smooth most of the time. In day-to-day usage, I noticed that the Huawei is slightly smoother. I would attribute this to the slightly faster clocked cores on the Kirin 710 chipset, as well as better optimization overall. Still, unless you have both of them lying around in front of you, it's very hard to notice the difference. Given the stock Android treatment found on the Nokia 5.3, I would have expected to be better optimized than it is currently. Even after the latest update, there are still some performance hiccups that are found here and there that need to be ironed out. For gaming, this is a no-brainer for me. The Nokia has a much more capable GPU, which translates into better graphics when you're gaming and smoother frame rates. I was shocked to find out that the Huawei only offers the lowest graphics settings in a game like Call of Duty. This is in complete contrast to the Nokia that can actually play the game on the high settings. So if gaming is something that you really care about, the Nokia should be your choice. What about multimedia? The Huawei has a higher resolution 1080p display compared to the Nokia 720p display. So in theory, this should mean a better viewing experience, right? But it's actually complicated. The Huawei's display has a very notable color shift when you're viewing it from anything other than head-on, which kind of ruins the experience a little bit for me. No such issue can be found on the 5.3's display panel. Their colors and contrast level as well as their brightness is very similar. As for the speaker, even though the Huawei's is nice and clear, it's a notch too quiet for me, even at max volume. The Nokia speaker feels better balanced. So in the end, it's a matter of choice between a higher resolution display and a slightly better viewing experience. I'll leave that up to you. What I would recommend is checking them out in stores before making a decision. Even though the Nokia has 4 cameras on its back, which is double what the Huawei can offer, Huawei's approach to choosing a higher quality 48 megapixel main sensor pays off massively here. It's simply a step above what the Nokia can offer with its 13 megapixel main camera. You will immediately notice the difference in sharpness and contrast, even though the output of this 48 megapixel camera is only 12 megapixels. The experience of capturing images is also superior on the Huawei, which is just faster overall. The Nokia tries to counter that advantage by giving you better versatility. I personally like having an ultra-wide camera, and I use it a lot. Having said that, in anything but perfect conditions, the ultra-wide sensor and the macro lens on the 5.3 are almost useless for anything except social media use. The depth sensors on both phones actually does a good job with subject separation, although I'm still not completely convinced that that can't be compensated with better software. The Nokia does offer you the ability to adjust the bokeh effects after the images are taken, which is quite nice. Overall though, I will give the win for the Huawei over the Nokia here. I prefer the high quality solution found on the Huawei over the versatility offered by the Nokia, even if I do miss some of that sometimes. When it comes to video, the Huawei is limited to 1080p resolution, as opposed to 4K on the Nokia, but it does compensate for this by offering you higher frame rate options, such as shooting in 60 frames per second, something completely lacking on the Nokia, which is limited to 30 frames per second no matter what the resolution is. Both phones are equipped with 4000 mAh battery capacities, and they perform almost identically. Here, Huawei's MUI's efficiency balances out the Nokia's slightly more efficient Snapdragon processor and lower resolution display. The Huawei also offers some nuclear options for battery optimization if you need it. They both don't support fast charging and take about 2 hours to fully charge. One big factor in favor of the Nokia is that it offers a USB-C charging port, as opposed to the USB 2.1 found on the Huawei. For day-to-day usage, this makes a huge difference when it comes to convenience. So which do you value more? Convenience or better options for power saving? As is the case usually, it's really a matter of choice. As an overall package, the Nokia is a clear winner here. Its spec sheet is a lot more balanced, and it doesn't offer a very clear weakness or an omission that you'll regret not having in the near future. On the other side of the table, the Huawei is clearly the superior imaging solution, and it's for those people who want to fine-tune their Android experience a bit more deeply. It's just massively let down by its GPU, outdated Android version, and some strange choices, such as the lack of USB-C, which really hampers the day-to-day experience. So, which phone do you prefer? Do you agree with my assessment? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you've liked this video, please share, like, and subscribe. Look, if you're not gonna subscribe for me, at least do it for my poor cats. They really need food, the poor bastards. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.